The space station Valdris floated at the edge of known space like a forgotten dream. It was old, ugly, and held together by hope and rust. Thousands of aliens from dozens of species walked its metal halls every day. They came to trade, to hide, or to find things that were better left buried. In the deepest part of the station, behind 7 locked doors and 3 force fields, there was a vault. Inside that vault sat a suit of armor. The armor was black. Not the black of space or the black of shadows. It was a deeper black, like looking into nothing itself. It had no seams, no joints, no visible way to put it on or take it off. It simply existed, shaped like a man but clearly not made for one. For 300 years, the armor had passed from empire to empire. The Keth bought it first. They were tall beings made of living crystal, and they believed strength was everything. Their greatest warrior tried to wear the armor. The moment he touched it, the armor threw him across the room so hard that he shattered into 1,000 pieces. The Mavari came next. They were small, gray creatures with huge black eyes. They could read minds and move objects with their thoughts. Their most powerful telepath tried to bond with the armor. She reached out with her mind, and the armor pushed back. She screamed for 3 days before she finally woke up. She never spoke again. The Brawl were the last to try. They were giants, 8 feet tall, covered in thick green skin. They feared nothing. Their champion walked up to the armor with confidence. He placed his hand on its chest. The armor did nothing. It simply ignored him as if he was not worth noticing. The Brawl never recovered from the insult. After that, no one else tried. The armor was placed in the vault on Valdris, studied but never touched. Scientists wrote papers about it. Collectors offered fortunes for it. But everyone agreed on one thing. The armor was waiting for something. No one knew what. Kevin Park did not know any of this when he woke up that morning. Kevin was 29 years old. He had brown eyes, black hair that was always messy, and hands that were never clean. He was a salvage engineer, which was a fancy way of saying he fixed broken things on broken ships for people who could not afford better help. He had come to Valdris 3 weeks ago to repair a cooling system on a cargo ship. The job paid enough to cover his fuel costs and maybe buy some real food instead of nutrition paste. That was the best he could hope for these days. Kevin was eating breakfast in the station cafeteria when the alarm started. Red lights flashed. A computer voice announced a containment breach in Sector 7. Around him, aliens began to run. Kevin grabbed his bag and followed the crowd toward the evacuation points. But the crowd was too thick, and Kevin was too small. He got pushed down a side corridor, then another, then another. By the time he stopped to catch his breath, he had no idea where he was. The corridor was empty and dark. Emergency lights gave everything a red glow. Kevin checked his communicator, but it showed no signal. He was somewhere deep in the station, far from where anyone should be. He started walking, looking for a way back. That was when he found the vault. The doors were open, all 7 of them. The force fields were down. Kevin should have turned around. He should have run, but something pulled him forward. It felt like a whisper in his mind, like a hand on his back, like a dream he could not quite remember. He walked through the doors and into the vault. The armor stood in the center of the room, surrounded by scanning equipment and containment devices. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. Kevin had never seen anything like it. He walked closer. His heart was beating fast. His hands were shaking. Every part of his brain screamed at him to stop, but his feet kept moving. He reached out and touched the armor. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, everything happened at once. The armor moved. It flowed like water, like mercury, like something alive. It wrapped around Kevin's hand, then his arm, then his whole body. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. He felt the metal sink into his skin. connect to his nerves, bond with his bones. It should have hurt. It should have been the worst pain of his life. But it was not. It felt warm. It felt safe. It felt like coming home after a long journey. The bonding took only seconds. When it was done, Kevin stood in the center of the vault wearing the armor that had rejected every species in the galaxy. He looked at his hands. They were covered in black metal that moved with his thoughts. He could feel the armor around him, not like clothing, but like a second skin. It was part of him now, and he was part of it. A voice spoke in his mind. It was not words exactly, more like feelings that became thoughts. The armor was talking to him. It showed him images. Stars he had never seen. Planets he had never visited. A path through the galaxy that led somewhere important. Somewhere he needed to go. Kevin did not understand. He was nobody. He was just a mechanic from Earth who could barely pay his bills. Why would an ancient alien artifact choose him? The vault doors behind him suddenly lit up with activity. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Voices shouted in languages he did not know. The aliens had noticed that something had changed. They were coming. Kevin looked at the armor covering his body. He looked at the doors. He made a decision. He ran. The armor helped him move faster than he ever had before. It guided him through corridors he had never seen, past security checkpoints that did not stop him, toward a docking bay where ships waited to leave. Behind him, alarms screamed. Ahead of him, his future waited. Kevin Park, salvage engineer from Earth, had just become the most important human in the galaxy. He just did not know it yet. Kevin ran until he could not run anymore. The armor carried him through the station like he weighed nothing. He moved through crowds of panicked aliens, through security doors that opened before he reached them, through corridors that seemed to light up just for him. He did not stop until he reached his ship. The lucky break was not much to look at. It was small, old, and had been repaired so many times that almost nothing original remained. But it was his, and right now it was the only safe place he knew. He climbed inside and sealed the door behind him. His hands were shaking as he sat in the pilot's seat. The armor was still covering his body, still humming with strange energy. "Okay," Kevin said out loud. "Okay, what just happened?" The armor did not answer with words. Instead, it showed him feelings, safety, purpose, belonging. It was trying to comfort him, like a dog pressing against its owner during a storm. Kevin took a deep breath. Then another. He needed to think. A knock on his ship door made him jump. "Kevin? Kevin, are you in there?" He recognized the voice. It was Grace Kim. Grace was a xenarchaeologist, which meant she studied ancient alien civilizations. She was 32 years old, with sharp eyes and a mind that never stopped working. Kevin had met her 2 weeks ago when she hired him to fix a scanner she used for her research. They had become friends, or at least friendly. Kevin opened the door. Grace stepped inside, and her eyes went wide. "Oh my God," she whispered. "It's true. The armor. You actually bonded with it. You know what this is?" Kevin asked. Grace nodded slowly. She could not stop staring at the black metal covering his body. "Everyone knows what it is. The Void Sentinel. The precursor armor that has rejected every species for 300 years. She paused. "How do you feel?" Kevin thought about it. "Good, actually. Better than good. Like I just woke up from a really long sleep." Grace sat down heavily on a cargo crate. Her face was pale. "Kevin, do you understand what this means? The Keth, the Mavari, the Brawl, they have all tried to claim this armor. They have killed for it. And it chose you. A human. A random human mechanic." "Thanks for the confidence," Kevin said dryly. "I'm not insulting you. I'm telling you the truth. Every powerful species in the galaxy is going to want you dead or captured within the next few hours. As if to prove her point, Kevin's communication system crackled to life. A cold voice filled the ship, speaking in a language Kevin did not know. But somehow, he understood every word. "Human vessel, this is Commander Raxus of the Keth Dominion. You have stolen property belonging to our empire. Surrender immediately, or you will be destroyed." Kevin looked at Grace. Grace looked at Kevin. "We need to leave," she said. Now, Kevin did not argue. He powered up the lucky brake and launched from the docking bay just as Keth ships began to surround the station. The armor helped him fly, guiding his hands on the controls, showing him paths through the chaos that he never would have found alone. They escaped into open space with seconds to spare. For hours, they flew in silence. Grace studied the armor with her scanners, while Kevin tried to understand what had happened to him. The armor kept sending him images, feelings, ideas. It was like learning a new language without any words. "I have a theory," Grace finally said. Kevin looked at her. "I'm listening." The precursors were the oldest civilization we know of. They existed millions of years before any current species evolved. They built things we still can't understand. And then they left. No one knows why or where they went. What does that have to do with me? Grace leaned forward. The armor was designed to find a worthy bearer. That's what all the records say. But no one ever figured out what worthy meant. The Keth thought it meant strength. The Mavari thought it meant mental power. The Brawl thought it meant courage. She paused. They were all wrong. Then what does it mean? Grace smiled, but it was a sad smile. I think the precursors weren't looking for the strongest or the smartest. I think they were looking for something else entirely. Something that only humans have. Kevin waited. Emotional complexity, Grace said. Humans feel things differently than other species. We feel love and hate at the same time. We feel hope and despair in the same breath. We are messy, complicated, contradictory creatures. And I think that's exactly what the armor was waiting for. Kevin looked down at his hands. The black metal seemed to pulse in response to Grace's words. She was right. He could feel it. The armor was not just connected to his body. It was connected to his emotions, his fears, his hopes, his dreams. There's more, Grace continued. The armor is showing you coordinates, right? A destination? Kevin nodded. How did you know? Because the records mention that too. The armor is supposed to lead its bearer somewhere. A place the precursors left behind. No one knows what's there. But whatever it is, it must be important. Kevin pulled up the star charts on his navigation computer. The coordinates the armor was showing him were deep in uncharted space, beyond anywhere humans or aliens had ever traveled. That's a long way, he said quietly. Yes, Grace agreed. And the Keth will follow us. So will the Mavari when they find out. So will everyone else. Kevin should have been scared. He should have wanted to run home, to hide, to give up the armor and go back to his normal life. But he did not feel any of those things. He felt something else instead. Purpose. For the first time in his life. Kevin Park felt like he mattered. Like he was supposed to be somewhere, do something, become someone. The armor had chosen him for a reason. He did not understand that reason yet, but he wanted to find out. Grace, he said slowly, will you come with me? Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed softly. I've spent my whole life studying the precursors. Now I have a chance to actually find something they left behind. She shook her head. I'd be crazy to say no. Kevin smiled. It was the first real smile he had felt in a long time. He turned the lucky brake toward the unknown and began to fly. Behind them, the Keth were already gathering their fleet. Ahead of them, something ancient was waiting, and Kevin Park, the mechanic who had never been special, flew toward his destiny. 3 weeks passed. The lucky break flew deeper into unknown space, following the path the armor showed Kevin. Every day, they moved farther from everything familiar. Every night, Kevin dreamed of stars he had never seen and voices he could not quite hear. The armor grew stronger. It responded to Kevin's thoughts now, changing shape when he needed it to, creating tools when he asked. Sometimes it showed him how to do things he had never learned, like speaking alien languages or reading ancient symbols. It was teaching him slowly, patiently, like a parent teaching a child. Grace spent her time studying everything she could. She recorded data, made notes, and asked Kevin endless questions about what the armor felt like, what it showed him, what it wanted. She was a scientist, and this was the discovery of a lifetime. They stopped at a trading station to buy supplies. That was where they met Tommy. Tommy Lee was 41 years old. He had gray in his hair, scars on his face, and eyes that had seen too much. He had been a soldier once, fighting in the colonial wars when humans first started spreading across the stars. Now he was a mercenary, taking jobs that paid well and did not ask questions. Kevin found him in a bar, surrounded by empty glasses and bad memories. "You're the human with the armor," Tommy said when Kevin sat down across from him. "Everyone's talking about you. Is that going to be a problem?" Kevin asked. Tommy laughed. It was not a happy sound. "Kid, I've been running from problems my whole life. One more won't make a difference." He finished his drink. "What do you want?" "Help," Kevin admitted. "I'm being hunted by the Keth. Probably others too. I need someone who knows how to fight." "And why would I help you?" Kevin thought about it. He could offer money, but he did not have much. He could offer promises, but those were cheap. Instead, he told the truth. "Because I don't know what I'm doing," Kevin said. "I'm a mechanic. I fix engines and patch hulls. I've never been in a real fight in my life. But this armor chose me for something important, and I'm going to see it through. I could use someone watching my back." Tommy stared at him for a long moment. Then he smiled, and this time it almost reached his eyes. "You're honest," Tommy said. "I like that. Haven't met an honest man in a long time." He stood up. "Fine. I'll come with you. But if things go bad, I'm saving my own skin first." "Fair enough," Kevin agreed. They found their fourth member 2 days later. Veth was young for a Mavari, barely adult by their standards. She was small, with gray skin and large dark eyes that seemed to see right through people. Unlike most of her kind, she did not look at other species with superiority. She looked at them with curiosity. She had been exiled from the Mavari collective for asking dangerous questions. Questions like why the Mavari believed they were better than everyone else. Questions like whether their endless expansion was really necessary. Questions that her people did not want to answer. She found Kevin at a fuel station, walked right up to him, and spoke directly into his mind. "You are different," she said, her voice echoing in his thoughts. "I have touched thousands of minds, and none of them felt like yours. Your emotions are like a storm, all happening at once. It is beautiful." Kevin should have been alarmed. But the armor was calm, so he stayed calm too. "What do you want?" he asked out loud. Veth tilted her head. "I want to understand. My people think they know everything, but they could not bond with the armor. You did. That means there is something we do not know. I want to learn what it is." Grace stepped forward, her scientist's curiosity overcoming her caution. "You're a telepath. Can you sense what makes Kevin compatible with the armor?" Veth closed her eyes. For a moment, Kevin felt something brush against his thoughts, gentle and careful. Then she opened her eyes again. "His mind is not stronger than ours," Veth said slowly. "It is not faster or more organized, but it is deeper. It contains feelings that contradict each other, that fight each other, that exist together even when they should not." She paused. We Mavari pride ourselves on mental control. We organize our thoughts, suppress our emotions, maintain perfect order. But this armor does not want order. It wants chaos. It wants passion. It wants everything a human heart can feel. Kevin felt the armor pulse in agreement. Veth was right. The armor fed on his emotions like a fire fed on wood. When he felt strongly, it grew stronger. When he was calm, it waited. It was not just using his body. It was using his soul. "Will you come with us?" Kevin asked. Veth smiled. It was an awkward expression on her face, like she was not used to making it. "Yes, I will come." The journey continued. 4 travelers now, flying toward the unknown. Kevin, the mechanic who became a warrior. Grace, the scientist seeking answers. Tommy, the soldier running from his past. Veth, the exile searching for truth. 1 month after leaving Valdris, the Keth finally caught up with them. Commander Raxus brought 20 ships. They surrounded the Lucky Break in an asteroid field, blocking every escape route. His voice came through the communication system, cold as ice. "Human," Raxus said, "you have led us on a long chase. It ends now. Surrender the armor, and I will make your death quick." Kevin looked at his friends. Grace was scared but determined. Tommy was already checking his weapons. Veth had her eyes closed, preparing her mind for battle. "No," Kevin said into the communicator. "The armor chose me. It's mine. And I'm not giving it up," Raxus laughed. "Then you will die." The Keth ships opened fire. Kevin did not think. He felt. He felt fear for his friends. He felt anger at the Keth. He felt determination to survive. He felt hope that they could escape. The armor responded to all of it. It wrapped around him completely, covering even his face. It grew weapons he had never seen before, shields that should not exist. It made him faster, stronger, better than any human had ever been. Kevin flew out of the Lucky Break and into the battle. He moved through the asteroid field like a ghost, dodging fire, striking back. The armor adapted to every attack, learned from every mistake. When a Keth ship tried to ram him, he tore through its hull with his bare hands. When another fired missiles, he caught them and threw them back. He was not fighting like a soldier. He was fighting like a storm. Tommy provided cover fire from the Lucky Break. Veth used her telepathy to confuse the Keth pilots. Grace kept the ship running even as it took damage. Together, they destroyed 8 ships and disabled 4 more before the Keth retreated. Commander Raxus's voice came one final time before his fleet fled. "This is not over, human. I will find you. I will take that armor, and I will make you suffer." Kevin floated in space, surrounded by wreckage, breathing hard inside the armor. He had won, but he knew Raxus was right. This was just the beginning. The coordinates led them to a nebula. It was massive, purple and gold, filled with clouds of gas that blocked all sensors. No ship had ever traveled through it. No map showed what lay on the other side. For as long as anyone could remember, it had simply been there, beautiful and untouchable. The armor guided Kevin through the clouds. It knew the path, remembered it from a time before any living species existed. The Lucky Break followed close behind, Grace piloting while Kevin flew ahead in his armor, clearing the way. It took 3 days to reach the center. What they found made them stop and stare. A gate. A structure so large it made their ship look like a grain of sand. It was made of the same black metal as Kevin's armor, covered in symbols that pulsed with faint light. It hung in the middle of the nebula like a door to another universe. "The Precursor Gate," Grace whispered. "It's real. It's actually real." Kevin flew closer. The armor was singing in his mind now, a feeling of joy and recognition. This was what it had been waiting for. This was the destination. He reached out and touched the gate. The symbols flared bright, and the darkness in the center began to swirl. "It's opening," Beth said, her voice filled with wonder. "After 10,000 years, it is opening." But before they could go through, alarms filled the Lucky Break. Commander Raxus had found them. His fleet emerged from the nebula clouds like predators from shadows. 50 ships this time, twice what he had brought before. He had called for reinforcements. He had prepared for war. "You cannot escape this time, human," Raxus announced. His voice was calm, certain. "The gate is a dead end. There is nowhere left to run. Give me the armor, and I will let your companions live." Kevin looked at the gate. It was fully open now, showing nothing but swirling darkness on the other side. He had no idea what waited there. It could be salvation. It could be death. It could be nothing at all. But he knew one thing for certain. He was not going to surrender. "Grace," Kevin said through the communicator, "take the ship through the gate. All of you, go." "What about you?" Grace demanded. "I'll hold them off. I'll follow when I can." "Kevin, that's suicide. There are 50 ships out there." Kevin smiled inside his armor. "Then I better not waste time." He flew toward the Keth fleet. The battle was different this time. Kevin was not fighting to escape. He was fighting to protect. He was fighting so his friends could survive. Every emotion he had ever felt seemed to burn inside him at once, and the armor drank it all in. He became something more than human. The armor changed, grew, evolved. It created weapons that fired beams of pure energy. It formed shields that could block anything. It moved so fast that the Keth could barely track him. Kevin tore through their ships like paper, destroying everything in his path. But 50 ships were too many, even for him. A missile struck him from behind. Then another. Then a dozen more. His shields held, but just barely. The armor was strong, but it had limits. Kevin could feel it straining, working harder than it ever had before. He looked back. The Lucky Break was almost at the gate. Just a little more time. Just a few more seconds. Commander Raxus's flagship moved to intercept. It was massive, heavily armed, and heading straight for Kevin's friends. Kevin made a choice. He flew directly at the flagship. Not to fight it. Not to damage it. He flew into it. Through its shields. Through its hull. Through its core. He came out the other side just as the ship exploded. The blast threw him across space. His armor was cracked, damaged, barely holding together. Warning signals filled his mind. The armor was telling him it could not take much more. But when Kevin looked up, the Lucky Break was gone. It had made it through the gate. His friends were safe. Kevin flew toward the gate, ignoring the remaining Keth ships that still fired at him. Every hit made his armor weaker. Every second made survival less likely. But he kept going. He reached the gate just as his armor began to fail. He fell through the darkness. And everything went black. When Kevin woke up, he was lying on grass. Real grass. Green and soft and alive. He could feel wind on his face and sun on his skin. His armor had retreated, covering only parts of his body now, conserving its energy. He sat up slowly and looked around. He was on a planet. A beautiful planet with forests and mountains and rivers that sparkled in the light. And in the distance, rising from the landscape like a dream, was a city. A city made of the same black metal as his armor. The Lucky Break was nearby, landed safely on the grass. Grace ran toward him, followed by Tommy and Veth. They helped him stand, their faces filled with relief and wonder. "We made it," Grace said, her voice shaking. "Kevin, we made it." Kevin stared at the city. Something was moving there. Figures walking toward them. They were shaped like humans, and they were wearing armor. Armor just like his. Other bearers. Other humans who had found their way here, guided by their own armors across the galaxy. Kevin's armor pulsed with recognition, with joy, With purpose, they had found the inheritance of the precursors, and they were not alone. One of the approaching figures reached them first. It was a woman, older than Kevin, with kind eyes and armor that gleamed silver instead of black. She smiled at him like she had been waiting for him her whole life. "Welcome," she said. "We have been expecting you." Kevin had so many questions. But before he could ask any of them, she continued. "The precursors left us a message. A warning. Something is coming. Something from beyond our galaxy. They created the armors to prepare for it. To find warriors who could fight not just with strength, but with heart." She looked at each of them in turn. "Grace, Tommy, Veth, Kevin, you have proven yourself worthy," she said. "Now it is time to learn what that truly means." Kevin looked at his friends. They had come so far, risked so much, lost so much. But they were here. They had made it, and whatever came next, they would face it together. The city was called Heaven. It had stood for 10,000 years, waiting for those who would find it. The black metal of its buildings never rusted, never cracked, never faded. It was a monument to a civilization that had reached the stars and then left them behind. Kevin walked through its streets with wonder in his heart. Around him, other humans moved about their lives. Some wore armor like his. Others did not. All of them had stories, journeys that had brought them here from every corner of the galaxy. The woman who had greeted them was named Hannah. She was one of the first humans to find Haven, nearly 40 years ago. Her armor had chosen her when she was just a child, lost on a colony ship that had drifted into unknown space. She had grown up here, learned everything the precursors had left behind, and waited for others to arrive. "There are 217 of us now," Hannah explained as she led Kevin and his friends to the central tower. Each one found by an armor, each one guided here by paths that seemed like chance but were not. "Why humans?" Kevin asked. It was the question that had burned in his mind since the beginning. Why did the precursors choose us? Hannah smiled. "Let me show you." The central tower held the answer. Deep inside, protected by walls of black metal, was a chamber filled with light. And in that light, a message played. Not words, but feelings. Not sounds, but understanding. The precursors spoke directly to Kevin's soul. They showed him their history. They had been the first intelligent species in the galaxy, alone for millions of years. They had built wonders that modern civilizations could not imagine. They had explored every corner of known space and found it empty. They thought they were the only ones who would ever exist. Then they discovered what lay beyond the galaxy. Something vast. Something ancient. Something that fed on life itself. They called it the hunger. The hunger had destroyed countless galaxies before. It moved slowly, taking millions of years to cross the void between stars. But it was coming. It would arrive eventually. And when it did, nothing would survive. The precursors knew they could not defeat it. They were powerful, but they were also old, tired. Their emotions had faded over the millennia, becoming pale shadows of what they once were. They had gained wisdom, but lost passion. They could think clearly, but could no longer feel deeply. So they did something remarkable. They created the armors and seeded them across the galaxy. Then they left, traveling to another galaxy, hoping to find a way to fight the hunger from afar. But they left the armors behind with a purpose. The armors were not weapons. They were amplifiers. They took the emotions of their bearers and transformed them into power. The stronger the feelings, the stronger the armor became. Love became shields. Anger became fire. Hope became light. The precursors had searched for millions of years to find a species with emotions powerful enough to fuel the armors. They found many intelligent species, many powerful species, many wise species. But none of them felt the way humans did. Humans were young. Chaotic, contradictory. They loved fiercely and hated passionately. They hoped against all odds and feared without reason. They laughed and cried and raged and dreamed, all at once, all the time. Their hearts were storms that never stopped. To the ancient, fading precursors, humans were a miracle. So they waited. They let humanity evolve, spread across the stars, find their own way. And they left the armors in places where humans would eventually discover them. Every armor was a test. Every armor was a key. Every armor was a gift. Kevin felt tears on his face. He did not know when he had started crying. The message ended, but the feeling remained. The precursors had believed in humanity. They had trusted that humans, with all their flaws and weaknesses, were exactly what the galaxy needed. And now that trust had to be honored. Hannah led them back outside. The other armor bearers had gathered, standing in the plaza before the tower. 217 humans, each one chosen, each one ready. The hunger will arrive in our lifetime, Hannah said. The precursors' calculations were clear. We have perhaps 50 years, perhaps less. We will not be able to hide from it. We will not be able to run from it. We will have to fight it. She looked at Kevin. That is why you are here. That is why all of us are here. We are the defenders the precursors hoped for. The warriors who feel deeply enough to stand against the darkness. Kevin thought about everything he had experienced. The fear when the armor first bonded with him. The anger when the Keth attacked his friends. The hope when they reached the gate. The love he felt for Grace, Tommy, and Veth, who had stayed with him through everything. He understood now. Those feelings were not weaknesses. They were his greatest strength. He looked at his friends. Grace was crying too, but she was smiling. Tommy stood straight and tall, the shadows finally gone from his eyes. Veth's face glowed with wonder, her exile finally given meaning. Then Kevin looked at his armor. It had pulled back from his skin, leaving him in his normal clothes. But he could feel it waiting, ready, eager to become part of him again whenever he needed it. What's your name? He asked it quietly. He had never thought to ask before. The armor answered. Not with words, but with feeling. A feeling of determination, of refusal to give up, of standing firm when everything else fell apart. Resolve. His armor's name was Resolve. Kevin smiled. It was a good name. It was the right name. He turned to face the assembled bearers. They were all looking at him, waiting. He did not know why, but he could feel their attention, their hope, their trust. I'm just a mechanic, Kevin said. A few months ago, I was fixing engines and worrying about paying my bills. I never asked for any of this. He paused. But the armor chose me anyway. And I think I finally understand why. He raised his hand, and the armor flowed over him, covering him in black metal that shimmered like starlight. Humans feel things, he continued. We feel everything all the time more than we should. Other species think that makes us weak. They think emotions are obstacles to be controlled. But the precursors knew the truth. Our feelings are not our weakness. They are our power. He looked up at the sky, at the stars that waited beyond the atmosphere. Something is coming. Something that wants to destroy everything we love. And when it arrives, we're going to be standing in its way. Not because we're the strongest. Not because we're the smartest. But because we care enough to fight for something more than survival. The other bearers raised their hands. 217 armors activated, covering their wearers in metal of every color, black and silver and gold and blue. They stood together, humans from every corner of the galaxy, united by their hearts. Kevin felt something he had never felt before. Pride, purpose, belonging. He was not alone anymore. None of them were. The precursors had given him a gift and a burden. The armors and the responsibility to use them. Now it was time to honor that trust. Kevin looked at his friends one last time. Grace stood beside him, her eyes bright with tears and determination. Tommy nodded once, a soldier ready for his final mission. Beth smiled, her mind touching his with warmth and gratitude. Then Kevin turned to face the stars. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between galaxies, the hunger was coming. It had destroyed civilizations beyond counting. It thought it was invincible. It had never faced humans before. It had never faced creatures who loved so fiercely they would die for strangers, who hoped so desperately they would fight against impossible odds, who felt so deeply that their hearts could fuel weapons beyond imagination. Kevin smiled inside his armor. The hunger was in for a surprise.